Daf Kuf Zayin Amud Aleph will begin on the Mishnah at the bottom of Kuf Vav Amud Beis. Zok the Mishnah, Yoshev Echad Ala Pesach V'Lo Milei. One person sat in front of the doorway, but he did not completely cover the doorway. And V'Lo Milei, Yoshev Hasheni Milei. And then a second person came by, and he completely covered the doorway. So now there's an animal inside. Now that the second one comes and he is memale the Pesach, now the animal is considered to be nitzad, it's trapped. Hasheni chayev. The second one is chayev. The first one, when he did his maisa, there was no tzeda. The second one, when he did his maisa, that was the act of tzeda. Now, even though the first one, by remaining in his place, also assisted, he helped the second one to do the tzeda, but at the time that he did his maisa, his action, he did not trap the animal. So there was no act of tzeda at the time he did his maisa. And then he's staying there, he's simply passive, he's not doing anything. The second one is the one that when he sat down, he filled the doorway, he committed the act of tzeda. However, if the first one, when he sat on the Pesach, he did fill up the Pesach, he did cover it completely, so the animal at that point is trapped. And now a second person comes and he sits next to him. So now he sits in a way that if the first one would leave, the second one would now be the one to be covering the doorway. He would be covering the doorway. But at the time that the second one came and sat over there in front of him, or next to him, depending on the situation, at the time that he sat over there and also blocked the doorway, he did not add anything, because the animal was already nitzad. Even though the first one got up and left, and now, in effect, the animal is being trapped over there on account of the second one being there in the place of the doorway. Nevertheless, Harishon Chai V'Sheni Potter. The first one is Chai, because of the first one, when he did his Maisa of Tzeda, he trapped the animal. The second one, when he did his action, his Maisa, he did not contribute anything. Now, even though Mimela, when the first one leaves, the second one is blocking the doorway, but there's no Maisa, there's no Malach over here, because at the time that he did the action, there was no Tzeda, and now that he's sitting in his place, he's completely passive. What is this compared to if a person has his house, there happens to be an animal that's trapped inside, it's tied up, it's trapped inside. Now he comes and locks the door, and there's an animal, a deer, that's inside, that's tied up inside. His locking of the door contributes nothing. So he is potter. The one who locked the door is potter. Similarly, in this case over here, the second one contributes nothing. What is this example over here? What does this add more to the case of the Mishnah itself? Why is it more pashut in this second case when he's noyelis besa l'shaimra v'nimtzeh b'seicha? Why is that more pashut than the case of the Mishnah itself? So Taisus answers that in the case of the Mishnah, when he sits there next to his friend, it looks like he's trying to contribute, to add more to the shmir. It's looking like even though he's in fact not, but it looks like it has the appearance of adding to the shmir. In the second case, he's doing nothing. He's locking a door, and the animal is tied up inside. It doesn't have any appearance of doing any tzedem. So it's a more pashut case. So look at the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rabbi Barashi, Amar Rab. Nichnas lo yitzipor tachas kanafa. If a bird came under his garment, so now it's trapped under his garment. So Yeshiv Mishamra Achatechshav, he can sit, he does not have to set it free. It came on its own. He did not do a Maisa Tzeda, there was no Tzeda. He can sit there until it's dark and then keep the bird. Now, of course, he can't handle it because it's muksa, but he can be passive and sit there and wait till after Shabbos and keep it. The Mishnah said that if the first person sat down and he filled up, they cover the doorway. And then the second one comes and sits by him, even though the first one got up and left. The Rishon is Chayiv, the Sheni is Potter. But it says Potter. So my love, Potter of Alaser, doesn't this imply normally the expression of Potter means Potter of Alaser means it's also Midorabanan. So doesn't that imply that he really should get up and leave? That he shouldn't stay there? That is Potter of Alaser. And therefore over here, that he should get up and leave. Gemara says, "Loi Potter umutter." What it means is Potter umutter. Even though normally the expression Potter means Potter v'loser, here it means Potter umutter. Achanam mistabra midiktani seifa l'mazeh daimel l'noilas beisel l'shamroim. If a person goes to lock his house and to guard it and lock the house, and it comes out that there's a tzvi that's inside, tied inside, so then he is noila beisel. Then Michlal, the Potter Mutter, must be that the Potter over here that we're saying, since we're bringing an analogy to this case, it must be Potter Mutter, as Rashi says, because it's common. That's a common occurrence. A person locks his house, even if he happens to have something trapped in his house, or he has a tied-up animal, or he has a pet or a bird in a cage. He locks his house. So it's mutter, since we're drawing an analogy to this case, the potter must be potter mutter shmami no. Ikadamri amrav nagbar yisav hanam nami tanina pisham and rishon v'holachloi harishon chayim sheni potter. Even though the first person got up and left, when the first person sat down, he covered the doorway. The second person then came by. Even if the first person got up and left, the sheni is potter. My love. So in this approach over here, we're, to begin with, assuming and trying to be medayik that it's mutter. My love, potter mutter. Doesn't this mean that it's potter mutter? It's potter mutter. Where's it like potter of a losser? Perhaps no. Maybe it means potter of a losser. Gemara says no. You can't say potter of a losser. Since we're drawing an analogy to that case, Michlal the potter mutter shmami no. Amr Shmuel, so we're discussing this expression of Potur. Shmuel says, Kol Paturi de Shabbos, everywhere where we have the lotion of Potur, Beichel Shabbos, it's Potur Velos. What it means is Potur Velos, Lebar, Mehane Klas. Except these three exceptions, the Potur Mutter, which are Mutter. Chada. One is our case over here. And like we say, Mimai the Potter Mutter, Diktani Seif Lamazah Daima, Lenoilas Beis Lashama, Venitzatzi, Shamar B'Saich. So one is our case over here, that it says that the Sheni over here, the Sheni is Potter, even though it says Sheni is Potter, it's Potter Mutter. V'idach, another case is Hamapis Mursa B'Shabbos. If a person is Mapis Mursa, he has a pus pimple, and he makes a hole in it to drain it. If the purpose of it is to make an opening, that the opening will remain there. So it's to drain the pus, and it's for air to now circulate and heal the wound. So he's making a peh. That is, therefore, he is either boina. It's considered like he's boina. If you hold there's binyan by Balei Chaim, he's making a pesach. A pesach has to be made lahachnis lohaitzi, for bring things in and take things out. Here also he wants to be maitzi lecha and be machnis the avir. So if he's making it in that manner, so it's either boino or it's maki bepatish. So if he's doing it in that manner, im lasos lepechai, then it's a malacha and he's chai. Im lohaitzi menalecha. But if it's only to drain it and it's not to make a hole, lahachnis lohaitzi, and he just wants to drain it, and the hole is not going to be made in a way that the intent is that it's made in a way that it stays for some time, and it's lahachzul, then potter. And it is potter. And even though potter normally would mean potter veloser, here it's mutter. Umimai the potter or mutter. And how do we know that potter in this context means mutter, that it's mutter l'charchila? This non-makat shel yad litol b'asakaitz. A person can take a sewing needle to remove a thorn. So in that case, there's no melacha deraisa, Over there, he's not making a hole that he wants to be somewhat permanent. He doesn't care if the hole closes up right away. He just wants to remove the thorn. And it says, machshal litol b'asakaitz, which is machshal lecharchila, that you can do with lecharchila. Here also, that it's immilaitz v'menalecha, he doesn't want to make a hole that remains, then even though it says potter, it's potter or mutter. Now, as Taisus and Dav Gimel speaks out, he's not making a hole. It's not made in a way that the hole will be somewhat permanent, so it's no boinem. Now, even though there's a hole over there that's temporary, and it might close up immediately, but now removing the pas or removing the kites is a malach she'ein tzricha legufa. And according to Rav Shimon, it's potter. Normally it would be potter of a losit. However, over here, mishum tsar, because the person's in pain, we say it's mutal l'chila. The idach, what's the third case? Atzad nachash b'Shabbos, if a person traps a snake on Shabbos. If his purpose is so it doesn't bite him, so he doesn't want to trap it, he doesn't need the snake. So again, it's a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa, which normally would be potter aval osur. So im shalosh potter. It says potter. Im l'refuah chai. But if he wants the snake, if he wants to use it for refuah, then he's chai. And he's chai because he's trapping. We're talking, as before I speak out, it doesn't mean that he needs it for pikuch nefashos. He needs it for refuah, which is not pikuch nefashos. He's trapping the snake. That's state. He's chai. Now, mimai de potter or mutter. How do I know if misasik shleishkan he just doesn't want it to bite it? That it says potter means mutter. This non kaifim kara l'ner b'shvil shleit hechos b'kair. You can put a bowl over the nair, so that the flame doesn't shoot up and ignite the beams on top and cause a fire. Right, so you can put a bowl over the flame, of course, not to the point where you're extinguishing the flame. You have to leave some air space, but to prevent it from catching on and lighting the fire, and to cover the seichel cotton, and on a scorpion so that it doesn't bite. So you see that to prevent this tsar, it's a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa, which would normally be also the Rabbanan. In these cases, the Rabbanan said mutter. So in the case of the tzad and nachash, then in the case over there, and similarly the scorpion, even though it says potter, it means mutter. Shmeina shrotzim hamurim b'Torah. The 8 shrotzim that are mentioned in the Torah, if someone traps them or causes a bruise on them, he's chayiv. There are shmeina shrotzim that are listed in the Torah, which are the shrotzim that are matama, that generate tumah. For instance, the choyled, the achbar, the weasel, the mouse, the toad, the lizard. These types of crawling, creeping, slithering type of low-lying animals are matama. There's 8 of them listed in the Torah that generate tumah. A feature about these shmeina shrotzim is that they have thicker hides, as opposed to other type of insects or crawling creatures that have thin hides. These have thicker hides, and that makes a difference in terms of a chabala, of bruising them. So if one is tzad them, that's seda, like we learned previously. That's seda, and therefore a person is chayiv if it's for a positive purpose, and the constructive purpose, he's chayiv for trapping him if he needs the animal, if he needs the shrotzim. Bruising them, it depends on the form. Now these are therefore distinct from other shrotzim. Since they have thick hides, if there's a bruise, that means that the blood, if it's discolored, if it discolors the skin, it shows that it has left the body, and therefore it's not just like a redness of a person. There's a redness in a person's. If someone gets embarrassed or pinches his skin, it's red, and then the color it returns to its normal color. The blood enters back into the body. In these cases, if there's a bruise and it's noticeable, it means that it's left the body, Only reason that it's not the blood hasn't coming out, is not emerged, is because of the thick hide. So Rashi brings down two possible explanations of why this is a malach. Either because the blood has left the body and therefore it's netilas neshama, or because it's dyeing the skin. It discolors the skin, it turns it into red, and it dyes it, and it turns into the color, that color of red. So these are the two reasons why it would be a malacha if you're chayvel them, if it's a chabala. Now, of course, in order to be chayiv, it has to be for a constructive purpose. It can't be makalkal. So what is the constructive purpose for a bruise? So if we learn that it's dyeing, perhaps he wants to dye the hides. He wants it to color red. Paisah Rabbi Akiva brings another reason for the blood. If he wants to feed the hides to his one of his animals, and it has blood there, it's food for his animals. So he has perhaps that constructive purpose. But in any event, it's only chayiv. He's only chayiv if there is a misak and a constructive purpose and not a kilkul in the bruising. But if there is, he's chayiv for that. If he traps them or bruises them, he's chayiv. But others they don't have thick hides. So the blood will re-enter the body, and there's no netilas neshama, there's no dyeing of the skin. But hatzadan, if he traps them, alatzarech chayiv shalei l'tzarech potter. If it's for a purpose, he's chayiv shalei l'tzarech potter. The Rishonim asked the question, well, that applies to all cases of tzeda. It has to be davka l'tzarech. Why does the Tana mention it specifically in regards to shash kotzim ramasim? So one of the terms given to Ritzim given, the Ran gives, is that the shmeini shrotzim b'tayra, it's presumed that he would trap them for a positive purpose. They're not dangerous per se, and if he traps them, it's perhaps for refuah or for those types of reasons. Other shkotzim ramasim could be dangerous, and he could be trapping them, like by the case of the scorpion, etc., just to remove the danger, to remove the hazard, which would not be considered a melacha shetzricha legufa. So that's why it mentions it specifically in regards to the other shkotzim ramasim. If he has a chaya or bird in his possession, hatzadim potter, because they're already nitzad, they're already trapped. But they have skin over here, they have hides, so therefore a chayvel behen chayiv. If he bruises them, he's chayiv. Since it says that because there's a bruise, he's chayiv, so it must be that they have thick hides, they have thick skins. And therefore, if he bruises his chayiv, man Tana, who's the Tana that holds that way? Amar Shmuel Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. The Tana is Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. The son Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Yomer Shmona Shratzim Yeshlam Iris. Now this is a machlokes. We have Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and the Chum Legabe Tuma, and we are assuming that is also applies in your Shabbos. That Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says the Shmona Shratzim have skins, and therefore they're not considered like flesh. The basar is matama. Now, things which are not basar, like bones, etc., nails or claws are not matama. What about the skins? So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says the shmeini shrotzim yesh lamor, and therefore it's not matama. It's not matama, and because it's considered separate from the flesh. But the Rabbanan argue on that. They argue and they say that the Hanaka and the Kaychel Tava Chaimet, there we consider the skin to be soft, and it's metama b'kadasha, the size is a lentil, just like the basa. So the Rabbanan hold that those four don't have skins, meaning they're not considered to have hide, they don't have thick hides, it's considered like basa. So our Tana that says Shmeina Shrotzim have or, and therefore Chayvel Bem Chayev L'Chayer is Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and not the Rabbanan. However, Rabba Barav Hunama Rabba Filotem Rabbanan. He said no, he can even go according to the Rabbanan. Ad Kan Loi Pliga Rabbanan Leder Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Where did the Rabbanan argue? Elon Tuma. That's Lagabe Tuma Dirsiv Elo Hatameim Lachem. So it says Hatameim, which is a rebut. So after the list in the Shmeina Shrotzim that the Torah mentions of the Hanok of the Koyach, it says rather Elahatmeim. We have an extra hay, and we're marbe that these these four, also the or is matama like the basa. But it also says Eila, these. And these is a mute. Eila is a mute. Eila, it's mamayet, the ones in the previous pasuk, are the chaylev v'ratzav, they are not matama. So the Rabbanan say that legabe tuma, we make a difference between the Shemona Shrots and we differentiate. That's only because of the Xeris HaKosser. It says Eilat Meimlach, L'Rabba Sharisam Kibsara. Avalinian Shabbos, but as far as Shabbos is concerned, meaning, as far as the Metzias, they're all considered to have thick hides. The reason why we differentiate between in Tuma is because of the Xeris HaKosser. But Linyan Shabbos, the Metzias is that they're thick hides, and therefore it's considered to be a Chabura, and they would agree that he's chayiv. Aval in Shabbos, afil Rabbanim moide. Frank the Gemara in Shabbos lepligi. Did they not argue legabe Shabbos? I vatan you learn in the Bryce outside echad mishmene shrotzim murim b'Torah. If a person traps one of the shmene shrotzim mentioned in the Torah, hachayvel ben chayev divrei Yochanan ben Nuri. So if he causes a chabura, he causes a bruise, he's chayiv. That's what Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says. He says that he's a chabura, and legabe Shabbos, you're chayiv. Chamar ma'imim ein or ela lema shamanu chachamim. But the Chum say no. There's no or, there's no skin, only to the list that the Chum mentioned that are matame or sem kibisarim. So this is, of course, a shibush, because the ones that the Chachamim mentioned that or sem kibisarim means that the or is soft, it's not considered a thick hide, and therefore it's matame bekadosh like the boss. So Gemara asks the obvious question: Adra lema shemanu chachamim ein lem or, the ones that the Torah do not have or. So what is the explanation? Is ein or chalik mi basar? There's no, the or is not different than the basar. There's no differentiation. Ela lema shaloi manu chachamim, only to the group shaloi manu chachamim. That's the way he explains it. But Amar Rava, but it says Lamashamano. It says what was listened by the Chachamim. El Amar Rava, he said Hachi Kamar. Ein or metame kibasar, or is only metame kibasar. El Lamashamano Chachamim. The or is metame kibasar only on the list that the Chacham said that those that the Chacham mentioned are metame. Otherwise, the or is not metame. Michlal, the Rav Yochanan ben Nuri, Hanach Nami, the way Manu Chacham Metame. Do you mean to say that Rav Yochanan ben Nuri says that they're all Metame? Vaha, Ketan Rav Yochanan ben Nuri, Omer Chaya Shmona Shrotzim Yesh Lem Ares, V'loi Metame. He holds that none of them are Metame. Omar Ravada Bar Masla Toras Hachi. V'chachamim Oimrim, Chachamim say that Le'inyan Tuma Ein Or Lema Shemanu Chacham. That he's saying Inyan Tuma, there's no or that the Chachamim mentioned is Inyan Tuma ain't or l'mashal Chachamim. So you omit the word Ella. Ella is omitted according in this teretz. He's saying that Inyan Tuma ain't or l'mashal Chachamim. As far as Tuma is concerned, the list that the Chachamim mentioned, we do not consider that to be or, we consider it to be basar and it's metame. However, it is as Rav maintained that this machlekes is only a machlekes legabe the dinim of tuma, but legabe the dinim of Shabbos, that they would both be maida, that we consider the or as hides and the bruise to be a bruise, and therefore you be chayv. So the Gemara will continue in this discussion. We'll see Bez Hashem next year.